Howdy, y'all. Welcome to my channel. If you are a first-time watcher, welcome. If you're one of my family members, thanks for watching and supporting me. You guys are great. Today, we're going to be talking about how to overcome the limitations of having only 8 audio channels available in Ableton Live LITE. So, if you are frustrated by not being able to get more audio takes or vocal takes or guitar takes or whatever into your project, here is a way to work around it, and it involves using a drum rack. I made this the other day just as a quick example for this video. What it is, it's a 4-bar clip of me humming, and you can see that I have a drum rack here and I've got some samples of me humming or singing or doing whatever I'm doing, and then I just trigger them. So that's the basic concept. Let me show you what it sounds like. And you can tell it's just a lot more dense than it would be if I only had one take of each bass, bari, and tenor part. I mean, it's just a lot more dense. So that's what we are on about. Let's show you the process for how to do this thing. Okay, let's make a new live set, shall we? Do I want to save changes? Sure, why not? Okay, new project. My restream is going there. You will need a MIDI channel and you will need an audio channel. On that MIDI channel, go ahead and drop a blank drum rack, and that's going to be where we store our stuff. So we can go ahead and rename this as storage. That's going to be where we trigger the audio. This audio channel is going to be where we record things into. Okay, so you need to have an idea in mind. You can't just start with, well, I guess you can wing it. I mean, to each their own. But I like to start with an idea in mind. Tonight, I don't really have much of an idea, so I'm just going to kind of wing it, and we're going to see how it goes. So go ahead and arm your audio channel, and using the loop tool here, select the area that you want to record into. It's a good idea to either give yourself some headroom at the start or some tail room at the finish. That just kind of gives you some time to reset between loops. Once you get that section looped here, with my little bit of a tail is what I'm going to do this time, we are just going to record, and with it being looped, you'll see that it captures each take, and then we can drag it out. So let's go ahead and get something into here. It's probably not going to be super good. Don't judge. Do 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 do. Whoops, poop-a-doop. Let's try that again, shall we? Okay, forgot to have the metronome on. Do 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 do. No idea how that sounds. Do 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 do. Okay. So I have 3 takes. The last one was kind of weird. Don't know how that'll sound. We'll see. This is just for an example. Cool. So I have my loop section. Let's go ahead and turn the looper off. And I'm going to drag this audio out and go ahead and drag it all the way back to the beginning there. Let's get it in line with one of my start times here. Maybe even drag it all the way back to 1. Get rid of that. Okay. So you can see, if I turn up the gain here, that I've got my takes. So now all that remains, apart from a bunch of processing and stuff, all that remains of this process is to go ahead and use Control E or Command E if you're a Mac user, and just separate these takes. Whoops. I think it's actually here that I need that dude to be split at. Let's find out. Yep, right there. Okay. And then I forgot I started like on count 3 here. It's weird. And maybe not. Let's go ahead and cut the head off this one. We'll see. Okay, so you see now that I have take 1, take 2, and take 3. I've got my 3 clips. If I hold down Shift and click each of them, I can highlight all 3 at once. Now, normally what would happen in the process when you have 3 takes is you would drag them each into their own channel, or what some people call a track. And then you could play them that way. Let's see how this sounds. Okay, that's kind of weird, but we'll take it. It's good enough for an example, right? We're just, again, trying to show you that concept here. Undo that, because that takes up so much space and we'll quickly run out of tracks. You saw right then I'd have 1 for my MIDI and then 3 for my vocals, and I don't want that. I need more room than that. So I'm going to go into my drum rack. Once I have these highlighted, I'm going to click and drag them, and you see that it auto-populates some cells. So I can rename them, and you should rename them. So let's call this bass. Hit enter there. Rename. Let's call this Barry. And let's call this tenor. Okay, now this is obviously not the greatest composition ever in the history of the world, but it'll do. Once you have your audio dropped into the drum rack, it won't do anything when I hit play. That's because I haven't triggered these audios. So let's go ahead and make a clip, and I know that my target section was measures 1 through 4. So if I put a note on each of those parts, it should, let me double check my thing here, they're all set, it looks like, to trigger rather than to gate. Okay, so it should play. Yeah, you'll notice right now that it is uber quiet. Let me turn up the gain. Okay, that's a terrible composition. There's a nasty note in there. I tried doing something chromatic and it didn't work out. Oh well. Anyway, couple of things to think about when you're doing this. 1, make sure that you name each cell. That way you don't get lost. So like if you're doing, like I use this all the time when I'm doing my song recording, I'll like verse 1, take 1, verse 1, take 2, verse 1, take 3, chorus, take 1, chorus, take 2, chorus, take 3. Name them so that when you go into the MIDI clips here, you can see which ones are being triggered at which time. Additionally, just in case you accidentally have in the drum rack, if you have the gate mode on, you will want to make sure that you have these going for the duration that you want them. So let's say I only want the tenor for half the time. Actually, what I probably want is the baritone to cut out right there. Then I could go into my Barry and I could gate that rather than trigger it. I should get rid of that nasty chromatic note. Okay, no, there it is. So let's go back into my clip, and I think on count 3 is when it starts to get bad. Oh, I moved the... Okay, so now we're encountering some of the issues that we have with this system. Okay, so I've gated. So I've gated that now, and it'll cut off at the right time. Couple of things to keep in mind before I get into some of the issues and how to overcome them. 1, for each cell, when you import it, you'll see that it has the entire clip there. Right-click and crop sample. Right-click and normalize will also help. So right-click crop, right-click normalize. There's probably shortcuts for that somewhere, but not that I'm aware of. So crop and normalize. Holy smokes. Get rid of my gain. What that does is it just equals out the volumes here. Okay. So you'll notice that when I start at the beginning of my MIDI clip here, it starts from the beginning of my vocal take. If I start somewhere in the middle, you'll notice it starts at the beginning of my sample no matter what. So that is one of the huge drawbacks to this method. If you are going to be doing this, which is a great way to save space, what I'd recommend is maybe have a resample. So add an audio channel, resample, and then record that playback into the resampling. That way you can scrub through playback and not have it starting just at random spots. So now if I mute this top channel, you'll notice it started at the correct spot. That's one way to work around that. Let's see, what else was I gonna say are issues with this? Lots of things. Memory is a big issue. So when you get into having a ton of takes, your CPU starts to work pretty hard. And when that happens, resample it and then freeze, right click and freeze your drum rack. It just frees up a lot of space on your machine. Cool diggity do. One of the drawbacks that people have, or one of the concerns you might be having is that, you know, with traditional channels, you know, you can on off, you can pan left, pan right, you can adjust your balance here. All of those things can also be done to each individual cell within a drum rack. So I see like this gain is not quite as balanced as the others. So let's go ahead and turn those down. And I'm just visually, I'm sure there's probably a way to check that for sure. I can, if I go into the controls here of each cell, I can add some EQ to each one of them. It's granted, it's the simple EQ, so I mean, there's not a lot of options not a lot of control. But you can get into some cool things. You can add some LFO things from within Simpler, or not. Well, this is basically a drum pad simpler. You can add some pitch things, but you can still pan left and pan right. So I'm going to go ahead and put my bass. Let's just go 10 to the left, or my tenor, I guess that was. And let's put this guy 10 to the right, and my other one will leave in the middle. Cool. I could also bloop. Bloop. So you see I just duplicated each one, and let's go into the controls for this one, and let's go up an octave for each of these dudes. Transpose up an octave. Not bad. Transpose up an octave. So with the normal way, you would have your audio clip out here, and you'd go into the audio clip settings. Here you can do that straight within the drum pad. So now if I go into my MIDI thing here, and let's just trigger those, drag them out, bloop, and let's not have the baritone do its thing. Okay, and you see another drawback. Within the drum rack, so what you may notice is that my high parts are now going twice as fast. So in order to fix that, go into your higher parts, and you'll have to turn on warp. So that's something, whoops, don't mute it. That's something you'll want to be careful of. Sometimes with short samples, it can cause issues. You'll just want to fiddle around with the warp for each cell and make sure that it's not causing issues. Okay, cool. I have lost the ability to add faders onto this thing. What I can do is I can go into each thing, or I could even create a macro, and I could map all of my fade-ins to my macro 1, all of my fade-outs to my macro 2, and then I could just adjust that. So let's go ahead and show that real quick. Fade-in, map. Fade-out, map. Okay, cool. We'll go to Barry, fade-in, map. Ooh, I don't think I did that right. Map. Map. Okay, and I can do that for all of my clips here. Let's go ahead, bloop and bloop doop. So exit map mode, and now I can adjust my fade in and fade out equally across several clips. Okay, cool. What about adding audio effects, you might be asking yourself? Well, yes, you can add audio effects to just one cell or one group of cells. Let's show you how to do that. Let's go into audio effects. Let's do reverb, because reverb is fun and I like cathedral. So let's make my basses, just my singular bass here. Let's go ahead and drop cathedral straight onto that. So I grab my effect and I hold it down to that cell, and then I just let go, and you see that cathedral is now here. So if I solo my bass, So you hear that there's lots of reverb there. If I wanted to do it to just my upper parts here, what I could do, let's go ahead and right click on my drum rack, and I'm going to hit group. What that does is it groups my drum rack into a group here. If I right click on that, I can duplicate it, or you can hit Control D or Command D. Let's name this one low, and I'm going to get rid of my high parts there. And let's make sure my cathedral is not actually on this one. Drum rack, these will be renamed as high. And let's get rid of all my low parts here. Delete, delete, delete. Okay, so now this drum rack has all my lows. This one has my octave up. Cool. So if I go into here and I drag cathedral, now only my high vocal parts. Whoa. What is this? Not sure. Now all of my high vocal parts should have. I guess I dropped it in the wrong spot. Let's just do it that way. There we go. Okay. They should have that on there. Let's go ahead and, if you don't know this trick, by the way, rename wet and rename my effectless as dry. Okay, so what I just did is I grouped my cathedral reverb so that my wet is 100% wet, but I also still get the dry channel. So, and I can adjust balance here. That sounds so weird. It's like Alvin and the Chipmunks. Okay, cool. So come up with an idea, loop an area. Once you loop it, stretch it out, slice it up, drop it into a drum rack, and then you just got to trigger stuff. If you want to, a good idea is to insert that audio track either into resampling or take the audio from, let's see, that specific drum rack channel. Make sure that you rename your cells and keep them organized. So, I mean, you have 64? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, boy. 8 times 16, I think, is 128. Is that right? Calculator. I'm sorry, Phil. Phil is my brother, and he teaches math. 128. So I have 128 cells that I can stick audio into, and that's only if I have one drum rack on this channel. I can have more than one drum rack on this channel, and I can trigger it different ways. So lots of ways that you can get audio into here that you could not otherwise get audio into here. Rename your samples, your cells, sorry, and then rename and save your racks. So like example rack, whoops, typo, example 3, and then I hit my save button and it'll go to my folder there. I don't actually want to do that, so I'm not going to do that. And then you just rinse, spit, and repeat until you are all finished. So I hope that this is helpful because it has revolutionized my ability to make music in Ableton Live LITE. If you can't afford the full version and all those infinite tracks and channels, then use your drum racks because it is a clever workaround. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. And until next time, stay out of trouble.